Excuse me. Promise you all it's just allergies. Oh my gosh.
Go. We're back.
All right, we're back. We are back up. We apologize for the system going down for temporarily. The board has not had any further discussions or made any decisions, so we'll start over again with the superintendent.
So back to the calendar discussion. So there's some more questions that came up with the calendar. So on the current calendar that I handed out to the board, we are still at 180 days. As we have done in the last several years, we will always have the ability to change to hours at any point we want to do that. Traditionally, that means we can shave off anywhere from 7 to 10 days, depending on how we structure our calendar. So Deb, to your question, we can make that decision later on in the year if we want to go that direction. But currently, in the calendar you have in front of you, that's based on a 180-day calendar. Now remember, 2 of those days are the governor's days that we just gave to teachers. So you'll only see 178 school days for kids on there, if that makes sense to you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
It does, okay, great, thank you. All right, so the other question was, what are the days for the teachers and support staff in service? That would be Monday the 31st, Tuesday the 1st, Wednesday the 2nd, and Thursday the 3rd, and then everybody would be off for Labor Day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday is election day, and then Wednesday would then be the first day of school. Any questions on the calendar? Perfect. All right, now let's dive into the plan. So there's an introduction in the plan. It gives a little bit of history about how we got into this situation, what had happened back in March with the governor closing schools. Talks a little bit about the survey, the original survey we had done with parents, and about 27% of parents in the first survey, the second survey, saying they wanted to stay in remote learning for the fall. That led our committee to continue down the path of knowing that whatever reopening was gonna look like, we knew that at least 27% of our families wanted to keep their kids home and to learn in their remote setting. So that was part of our decision-making and planning. We then put out a letter to families that talked about the major safety factors that we're gonna be putting in place. And I'll read those to you so people can hear what those are. These have been published in a letter to the staff and a letter to the community. So all students and staff will have temperature checks while entering the buildings. Custodial staff at all 3 buildings will be increased during the day to maintain an enhanced sanitizing schedule. Specialized sanitizing and disinfecting equipment has been purchased to routinely disinfect school facilities. Classroom setups will be modified to promote social distancing. Masks will be mandated when 6-foot social distancing cannot be maintained. Hallway traffic patterns will be implemented and monitored in the school buildings, including the entrance to the buildings. Hand sanitizer will be readily available in all classrooms. Water fountains and bottle filling stations will be shut down. We've actually changed our thinking on this a little bit after our meeting today with the epidemiologist. We believe the water bottle filling stations can stay open, so kids would be able to still fill their water bottles based on the feedback from the epidemiologist, but we would shut down the actual drinking fountains, and we have the ability to do that if we open. Students may bring water to school, and bottled water will be made available. With the bottled filling, we still have bottled water available for kids if they forgot their water bottles. Breakfast and lunch will be consumed in classrooms or outside, socially distanced. Signs will be posted throughout all buildings indicating hygiene and health protocols. Students will be taught and reminded to practice these protocols. At Paul Smith School and Franklin Middle School, students will remain in contained classrooms and not mix with other classes, otherwise known as cohorting. At Paul Smith School and Franklin Middle School, recess will be scheduled with individual classroom groups exclusively, which would be the same cohort they're in the classrooms with. Containment and isolation plans will be in place to quickly identify individuals who may exhibit symptoms to minimize the exposure to staff or students. Our head nurse will be designated as our COVID coordinator and be our direct contact to Health and Human Services. And updates will be monitored from the CDC, Center for Disease Control, and DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services, and adjusted accordingly. Certainly, these are all safety places we would be putting in place should the board decide to reopen schools. If we remain remote, certainly we would not have to go out and do all of this, at least until we decide to bring kids in. The next page of the plan is called Risk Zones and Modes of Instruction. Like I said, this is a comprehensive plan to cover all aspects. So we identified the red zone. The red zone would be a fully remote zone, fully remote learning for all. Reason would be risks are too high for in-person instruction. Could be an outbreak in one or more schools. It could be a recommendation from the Department of Health and Human Services or the local health officer here in Franklin. Could be a decision made by the superintendent and or the school board based on current conditions. Full remote learning is where the student and educator or information source are not physically present in the traditional classroom environment. Information is related to technology such as discussion boards, video conferencing, and online assessments. And significant improvements are planned for the 2021 school year, and they are in this report. The yellow zone would mean a hybrid option of some in-person instruction and some remote instruction. Many configurations and designs based on ages of students, safety factors implemented, and percentage of parents and guardians who keep students fully remote. The hybrid learning combines face-to-face and online teaching into one cohesive experience. A determined portion of the class sessions are on campus, while the other half have students working online. There are many possible configurations dependent on desired outcomes and resource limitations, i.e. space available, social distancing, and most importantly probably is transportation as well, which is a big issue. And then the green zone is what we know is life as we know it before the pandemic. Threat from the virus is mitigated due to vaccine and generally accepted cure. Most parents would be comfortable returning students to school as we knew it before the pandemic. Full and in-person learning is just that, where most kids are then coming back to school as we knew it before the pandemic. So then we wanted to put I wanted to put my recommendations at the front of the report so people knew where I stood working with my administration at this point in time on August 3rd. So I believe, based on all the conversations I've had with my administrators, with all the school superintendents around the state, all the state meetings that I've been attending all summer long, and on all the information that's coming to me, including the current state of the virus in Franklin and where we stand there, that the best approach at this point in time is to take a hybrid approach to the beginning of the school year, where we would return to some in-person learning for all families that wanted to bring their kids back into the school. That hybrid approach would be a schedule of, on Mondays, we would have remote learning for all the kids in the school district. And I'll talk about why certain things we're gonna do in a few minutes here. We would break the kids that want to come back to school into two groups. We would have an A group that would come to school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And we would have a B group that would come to school on Thursdays and Fridays. So kids would be getting 2 days, and this is just the start, by the way. We'll see how it goes. So kids would come 2 days in a row. It would be by the letters of the alphabet, so it would be A to K would be the A group, and the B group would be L to Z. The reason for the Monday remote learning is so that we have the 3 days where basically nobody would be in the building other than staff. For that one day on Monday, we could get everybody set up and ready to go. We debated Mondays, we debated Wednesdays, we debated Fridays. We ended up going with one of the other, we ended up going with Mondays based on one of the local, two reasons really. One was holidays. There's a lot of Monday holidays you have to deal with. We didn't want kids to miss out that would have been on Mondays. The other piece was we wanted to try and stay consistent with some of the other Lakes Region schools that had chosen Mondays, so we could be consistent with them because of the Hewitt Center as well. Although I will tell you, if we don't align with the Hewitt, we would allow our kids to come in on Mondays to go to the Hewitt anyways. So there'll be a lot of tweaking we have to do once the board decides which direction we need to go in. And then, of course, we would have the full remote learning going on for those families that wanted the full remote approach as well. We do recommend, and I recommend, that to do this, we would need to probably dismiss kids 1 hour early every day from each of the 3 schools. A couple of reasons to do this. One is we need to be able to provide enough time for our staff to plan because we'll be providing both remote instruction and in-person instruction, and we have to work with our teachers to figure out how to do that. That's one reason. Second reason is transportation. We're still at a 24 student limit on the buses, so we need to build in some extra time in those schedules in case we have to run a double bus run. And then the third reason is because of the custodial situation. I mean, there's jobs for custodians all over the state right now. So we can say that we're gonna try and hire custodians, but it's more likely that we're gonna have to repurpose our custodial hours, perhaps with overtime, perhaps thinking about doing 4 10-hour shifts instead of 5 8-hour shifts. These are some of the ideas that we're talking about right now. But we're gonna need to do something creative like that so we have the ability to do the increased sanitation that we're talking about during the day and certainly after school when the kids leave to clean. So there'll be some flexibility there that allows us to do that with this kind of a schedule. The next piece is personal protective equipment. I'm gonna turn this over to Jefferson for just a minute. What I want everybody to know is we have not purchased any protection equipment yet. We haven't purchased any of the supplies we're gonna need yet in terms of hand sanitizer, wipes. We've been waiting for the board to give us some direction about whether we are gonna try and reopen or not, because it's really thousands and thousands of dollars that we're gonna spend to do this. And we didn't wanna go out and buy all this stuff if we weren't sure whether we were gonna move forward or not. So Jefferson, can you kind of run through your spreadsheet
Sure.
that you have and give them a sense of what it's gonna look like for us to reopen?
Yep. So we calculated costs based on particular items that we would probably need to keep everything, ability to sanitize and everything like that. It won't necessarily be in the order that's on the screen right now, but I'll just go over what I have on my spreadsheet here. First off, one of the things was hand sanitizers for students in all the classrooms. We were looking at purchasing the gallon sizes of that. It's the most economical way of doing it. We had to guesstimate how much we would use. We determined probably about 300 gallons on a monthly basis. That has yet to be determined if that actually will be the case. At approximately $49 a gallon. You're looking at $14,625 just a month. So if we're going 10 months, that's $146,000 plus dollars. Disinfectant wipes for classrooms, one container, we estimated about 150 units at about $19.75 a unit to use per month, per week. And so we figured on a 4-week basis, and it's coming around to about $12,739 a month, or if you go out 10 months, $127,000 for the year. We have purchased sprayers, fogging machines to go around and sanitize the classrooms, and we have 5 units that we bought from Home Depot, came in at $800. We got that at a good deal. That's why we jumped on it right then. Right now, I think they're up to about $1,500 a unit. So that fortunately is a one-time purchase. It was about $4 grand for that. We also got some off of Amazon, which we haven't received yet, but they are ordered for less costly and more mobile usage. 5 of those at $225 a piece, so it's a little over $1,100 one-time purchase. No touch thermometers, about a combination of wall-mounted thermometers, which we are going to place at the entrances that will be used by people coming into the building. We actually will probably place some on tripod-like stands so that they can be moved around and made better locations for individuals to use them. Plus, we have handheld thermometers. Some of the thought processes will be actually going physically out to cars with kids to actually temperature check them in the vehicles and things like that. Purchased about 20 of those overall at $100 a piece. That's $2,000 one-time purchase. This next one is just informational. It's a significant expense, and whether or not we were going to go this route depends on many factors. This was changing the bathroom fixtures to no-touch contact controls, which is an expensive proposition. We've got to have 184 fixtures throughout the district that we'd have to put no-touch sensors on, and at that cost, including a need to have to, it's about to shut off.
Thank you.
that would require us to have to do some electrical work throughout the district also to make these functional. So we figured at about $2,500 a pop would be a cost of about $460,000 one time. Another purchase, not a significant one, but because we would be having classrooms, lunches and meals, breakfast and so forth will be held in the classrooms instead of the cafeteria, just so that people can maintain their cohorts and so forth. We'll have to purchase some garbage barrels that can handle that kind of waste. About 65 of them at $30 a pop, so just under $2,000 one-time cost. Disinfectant solution for the sprayers that we will be using comes about $765 a month, so about $7,600 for the year. Plexiglass desk dividers, based on 80, needing probably 80 at $2.25 a piece, so it's about $18,000 total cost, one-time purchase. And then plexiglass office protectors for the buildings, probably 13 pieces at $160 a piece, $2,080 total. You want me to get into the PPE here too, right?
Yeah.
So, personal protective equipment, a variety of things that we were looking to purchase. Provide temporary gloves to visitors and staff, 5,000 units, 15 cents a piece, about $750. Obviously, these are all estimated amounts and estimated quantities based on actual usage. Once we're in here, we'll have a better idea of these numbers, but just to give you a bit of perspective. Daily cloth masks for in-school staff. We figured 175 purchased a couple times during the year, so that's about 350 total cloth masks, $240 a piece. That's $840. Daily cloth masks for students that forget them or need them. Purchased, let's see, yeah, about 500. Purchased twice throughout the year, so it's about 1,000. So that's $2,600 at $260 a piece. Other thing that we would have on hand are the disposable masks for both in-school staff and for students who either forgot their cloth mask or didn't have them with them at all. Total about 10,000 for everybody with staff and students, and that looking at about $5,250 for that. Plastic face shields, the purchase of 200 of those for staff members to use at $3.04 a piece, so it's about $608. For the special education staff and elementary school teachers and staff, we were hoping, or we're looking at potentially purchasing the clear mouth masks, because younger children and obviously special education students need to have visual of the mouth of the instructor or the assistant that's helping them. So we looked at purchasing about 250 of those, and those are a little bit more expensive at $4.50 a piece, so it's a little over $1,100 there. And then one of the big ones are full protective gowns for staff that would need them. I looked to purchase about 500 of those, and those came in at around $4 a piece, so that's about $2,000 there. Do you want me to get into any other costs, or just stick with that for right now?
We can stick with that for now.
Okay.
Just talking
How
about
about the total? About the total?
So there's a variety of totals. I have other costs in here.
Why don't you get into it? Go ahead.
Okay.
Might as well.
So I just add it all in it.
Do it all at once. Good, bad, and the ugly.
So the other piece that we were talking about, and Dan alluded to, is the need for potential additional staff. Big one would be custodial staff, because of a need to sanitize these rooms, either during the day and certainly after school, make sure the cleanliness of it's a significant increase in time involved, the amount of time it does take to actually sanitize the classroom and let it dry and so forth. And this would be either a combination of potentially hiring part-time custodians if we were fortunate enough to actually find them, now that every district in the state's probably looking for staff themselves, or increase in hours of our current staffing. So approximate cost I based on the potential of hiring 4 part-time custodians. We'd have, I'm not sure exactly how we'd have them spread throughout the district, but potentially at least 4 more custodians at $25,000 a piece, so that's in the $100,000 right there. And another challenge is with doing food service and providing the meals, breakfasts and lunches in the classrooms. It's a lot more time involved with spreading or delivering those meals to the classrooms instead of all it being centralized in the cafeteria. Another thing that we also will plan on continuing to do is provide meals for those kids that are still learning remotely 100% of the time. So we will be using bus transportation hopefully to at the same time deliver meals while we're also picking up kids that will be coming into the school, but that also requires more time of personnel. So either a combination of increased hours or additional personnel. I estimated at 4 potentially additional personnel or increased hours of cost at $15,000 an individual, so that's another $60,000 potential cost right there. Just check and see if I hit other items. We did have a few other items on the list. And this one, I'll get to that one in a second. All right, so the one part that the superintendent spoke about was signage throughout the districts that would require us to purchase a lot of stickers or whatever else we need. Figured probably about $4,000 needed to get all the signage that would be necessary to place our appropriate social distancing markers, obviously indicators of what students and staff need to follow as far as the rules and protocols that we put in place. Another thing that we will need to do is for us to set up classrooms to be socially distanced. We have a lot of furniture that we need to put somewhere else. So we would be needing to rent storage units like something from Tilton Trailer or whatever else and loading those up with a lot of equipment and furniture that we won't be needing and will be in the way. And based on the number of units, we probably need about 6 total units, 2 per school. And that comes to $100 each a month, so about $600 monthly there, or $6,000 for the year. Another thing that has come up quite a bit in discussion has been regarding HVAC systems. One thing that we did was we did get a proposal to clean the HVAC system. The total cost of that kind of a venture would be $89,500 to actually clean all those HVAC ducts throughout the district. And then we have other online costs. One thing that we needed to do was to replenish and purchase more Chromebook devices to allow for the remote learning. And we ordered 285 more units at $290 a piece. That was $82,650. Chromebook cases for every one of the Chromebooks that the school districts are using to, obviously, for safety purposes, and that came to $12 a piece for 1,000 of them, and that's $12,000 there. And for us to be using the Google Enterprise Console that would allow us to do the remote learning, live streaming, or Google Meets, and all the other stuff for the district, with a software purchase of about $4,000. So,
Now, some of this we've already appropriated, like
Some of it you've done.
like the covers for the Chromebooks and all
Right.
that we have already approved that.
yep,
Okay.
but it was specific for this reason.
Right, right.
So, as I said, a lot of these were cyclical, based on a monthly purchase. I did extend it out to an annual cost to get really what it would look like over an annual cost. calculating out the monthly purchases. And remember, this includes the touchless sensors on all the bathroom equipment, which is $460,000. But the total of those particular items that I've talked about, and there could be other items that might come up along the way that we might need to add, but that's $1.138 million. Take off the $560,000 for the sensors on all the bathrooms and lavatory equipment, it's down to $678,000. 636. Obviously, these are approximations, and once we are really in the thick of it, we'll actually really get a good sense of what we're going through, especially the consumable stuff, such as hand sanitizers and wipes and things of that nature. And if you base that on 1,000 students, and that's about $1,100 a student.
Jefferson, will we be discussing this at finance next week? We have these documents available to the
Yeah,
board?
definitely,
Fine.
yeah.
Okay.
And this is just, this is not, I guess, I mean, is there things we wanna discuss as far as we're making a decision on it right now, or just sort of?
Well, I think when the board's ready to have the discussion about, thoughts about moving forward, then we can discuss that. Right now, this is just for information for you right at this point.
Can I just ask where you were obtaining the information based off of how to determine what sorts of things you need to look at?
Well, the template that I got for this spreadsheet and your opening costs actually came from the organization that I belong to, New Hampshire Association of School Business Officials, so
Yeah.
it's pretty much all the BAs throughout the state, and this is common costs that they were recognizing that could be potentially each district needing. But not the cost necessarily, we investigated the costs locally here, but the
So-
types of items that we would look at.
So just a point, just at least for everybody to consider, you know, the touchless sensors, I think personally, this is my personal opinion as a healthcare professional, that, you know, lots of industries, lots of places are going a little overboard with the surface sanitization. Because COVID is transmitted by droplets. We know this, the CDC has made that very clear. Masks are by far the most effective way to prevent the spread of COVID. And so just for everybody to consider, if we're looking at spending almost $500,000 on sensors where touch transmission isn't even really an issue with COVID, then just put it out there for people to think about. And research, please.
And that's mainly why it was informational for the
Yeah.
most part, just to really get a good sense of what something like that really would look like, because people ask, you know, and so we want to provide as much transparency on the information as possible.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jefferson.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So then the fourth and final recommendation would be that the board and the administration review this plan monthly to make determinations. I know there's a lot of schools out there that have decided to start slowly and to go full tilt after a month. If you followed any of the other plans that are circulating around the state, and we're gonna see a lot more plans around the state in this week, there's a lot of districts that are meeting. You know, and then other districts have decided to go the opposite route. Some are going fully remote, others are going fully all in based on the circumstances in their towns. So I do believe it's something that once we do make decisions, it's something we need to be reviewing frequently to think about, do we wanna go, do we wanna move it more aggressively, less aggressively, which way we have to go, you know, and whatnot. The remainder of the plan are all of the action areas that we've been planning on all summer long. I don't really wanna go through and read it to everybody. I do intend to put this out to the public and to the staff so that they will have it. The action plan areas have to do with health management, technology, facilities, transportation, food service, curriculum instruction, social and emotional well-being, operations and finance, which Jefferson covered quite a bit of, communications, and scheduling and attendance. I can cover these in great detail if you would like me to as a board, or we can have conversations about specific areas that perhaps are more important than others at this point in time. Whatever the board's pleasure is, I guess, at this point.
I'm gonna open it up to the board to superintendent has outlined basically the introduction of this and how this came about, and what brought this on, the mode of instructions, the red, yellow, green, which is something that has been discussed numerous times. His recommendations to the board, what he is recommending to the board. And then a finance person has gone over some of the costs of what it'll cost for your personal protective equipment and the recommendations, and a rough idea of what the annual cost could be. Your action plans, I think, as the superintendent has alluded to, he will include that out to the public so people can see this. And it will go out to staff so that the staff sees it. The school board has had an ample opportunity to look at this. It was sent to the board many days ago by the superintendent, so the board has already looked at all this. So if you have any questions pertaining to the action plan, I think it should be addressed individually to the superintendent. He'll be able to. I don't want to put a lot of time into it unless, I want your questions to be asked, but I don't want to have to go through every item that the superintendent has put into this plan, okay? So I'm gonna open it up now to questions from the board. So Deb Brown had some questions.
I submitted a document that, after reviewing it, questions that I had in each area. I've given it to the board member and I've shared it in your drive, so it's in the school board drive. If, I don't know how you want me to approach it, because there's something in each section of the plan that I have questions on.
Has a lot of the stuff that the superintendent has gone over, have you checked some of the stuff off? I know, like the PPE.
Yeah, some of them have been, but not all of them.
Okay,
You should just ask them.
so go ahead and ask the questions.
Okay, under communication, I understand that there's a communication plan in draft form. Can you give us a brief description about that?
Yes, the communications committee has been working on a communications plan. It'll be finalized at the communications meeting next week, and it'll go to the full board on August 17th. So then that communications plan, it will tell you how the structures of how we communicate, the tools that we use to communicate, and all of that nature. In terms of communication regarding COVID-19, there would be emergency notification if necessary. We have the means to do emergency notification. I can shut down the entire district in 10 minutes with this phone. So for people that are out there and watching, if there's a reason to shut the district down, we can do it very quickly, very easily. Notification that doesn't need to be emergency in nature. We have email access to staff and families. We hit 600 families within a day easily. So people are very much checking their emails. That would be for non-emergency style. And of course, we have snail mail as well. We don't use that anymore, we don't need to. In terms of the new product that we're purchasing, Aptigee, depending on when we decide to launch it, we would have even better communication with our families and staff, and the ability to send them text messages, the ability to send them ping notifications right on their phones. It's a total mobile strategy that will help with our staff and with our families as well.
How are visitors going to be coming to the schools, the drop-off procedures? Are people going to be let into the building, just the vestibule between the two doors? What's the plan?
The plan would be not to allow any visitors into the building. If you decide to open, that we would only allow authorized staff and students into the building. And then certainly parents would be welcome into the building should they have meetings scheduled, whatnot. But we would be limiting access to the building, only those that needed to be there. We would temperature screen and everybody, and then we would also screen every adult with the questions you need to ask. Have you been out of New England? Have you been in touch with anyone who has COVID? Have you been near anyone with symptoms? Do you have symptoms yourself? There's a standard list of questions that we have posted on all the front doors of all of our buildings that we would make them go through before we had them come in.
Okay, what about pickups and drop-offs of students?
So pickups.
Is it still the same procedures as it was, in the regular school year?
Yep.
Because some parents may feel that they need to bring their
I'm
student
gonna
into
refer those
class.
to the principals, cause the 3 schools are different, but they do have plans in place. Ken, go ahead.
The folks on audio on the Zoom are having difficulty hearing some of the folks, so they're asking to repeat some of the questions.
Okay. All right, so, the questions that Deb is asking is, under communication, understanding that the communication plan is in a draft form. Please give a brief description of the plan. So she went over that, hopefully you heard what the superintendent said on that there. How are visitors and or items dropped off by parents being handled, such as lunch, clothes, etc.? Okay, that was answered by the superintendent. And if a parent dismisses a student early, however, will the pickup procedure be, how will the pickup procedure be handled? And the superintendent was gonna refer that to the principals, because each one had their own way of doing it. So I'm gonna start with Susan, because she's she's right over my shoulder here. So we'll start with Susan, and a quick thing of how.
So dismissal, the parent will be, buzzes at the door, and, we ask them what they want or what they need. We let them in between the 2, so we now have 3 doors, and they stay in the section between the first door and the second door. We get the student, we will complete the paperwork based on the questions we ask the student, and the student is dismissed out.
Thank you, Susan. Ken?
I couldn't have said it better. We call that the airlock, and the airlock does give us the opportunity to have folks wait in the airlock. And it has, even in this short time we've had it, it's been working very well.
Carrie?
We have a separate component as well, with separate endings where the parents can come in from outside.
And what about dismissing a student early?
When we dismiss students, they leave through the main office front door and meet their parents in the front, horseshoe up front.
Parents don't come in.
Yeah, they walk out the front, they come through the main office for attendance reasons, and they can go up through the front door and they meet their guardian right up front in their vehicle.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
All right, so,
Do you want to just go and read them?
do you gonna go each one, and do you have, is it gonna be every single one of them on here? So I'm wondering if we wanna just give this to the superintendent and bring it back to us with the answers.
He's got it, I've shared it in the drive.
All
plus
right, I
I've
just think
handed
it's
them
gonna,
all.
we're gonna take
That's
a
up to
long
you.
time.
It's just, these are questions that parents may be asking,
Right.
that the plan doesn't, explain. And I can, certainly, share this with the administration as well.
All right, why don't we do that?
Can I just state something though?
Sure.
The plan wasn't made to try and answer those questions, or all those questions. The
No,
plan's
I
made
understand that.
The plan's made at the board level, so the board can provide direction, so the schools can engage with the teachers and the staff. Because it's the individual schools and teachers and staff that takes the next step to put things in place that are specific to their schools. It's not a plan that's designed to solve every solution for each school. The principals and their staff need to get together, that's the next step, to take this plan and then operationalize it at the schools.
And I do understand that. but
Okay,
there
I wanna
are-
make sure.
Yeah, there are questions that, for me as a board member, I wanna know how those are being handled before I make my decision.
Right. So my thought on this was that the board would provide us some direction tonight as to whether you were going to reopen the schools or not in some way, shape, or form, so that we could then move forward with our staff and our principals and start to provide and work on those individual plans. And also get some direction as to whether or not we're gonna spend some of this money on the things we're gonna need to reopen. That's the kind of direction that we're gonna be looking for, and I'll be asking for at some point tonight.
So I'm gonna let you send it out, because I feel that
Okay.
too much time is gonna be spent on all these questions. And I wanna give the remainder of the board an opportunity, because the superintendent does need guidance. He has come to us with his recommendation of what he's recommending, okay? And this is based on very little guidance that has been given through the school board, because we really weren't sure how things were gonna play out, or how things were going to go on with the coronavirus, okay? So, I just think that we need to finally make some decisions here tonight of how we wanna see things going, and what route you want to start having our administration take. Okay, i.e. the superintendent, the business administrator, our principals, because parents are also waiting to hear, what are we going to do? What is the plan for us, and what are we going to do? And again, we do have a meeting with the teachers union on Thursday evening, and then we have a regular school board meeting on August 17th. But I really feel that our time is of the essence here, and we need to kind of give guidance to the superintendent and to his administrative team on what decisions and what we want to be doing, or what are we looking at as a school board. So, I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna go, Jeff, what do you think?
I agree.
You're my vice chair here, help me out.
Yeah, I think we need to go that direction, get something out there so that we can have at least an indication of the general direction we're going, and really make it clear, as Deanna stated previously, that, you know, this is gonna be a fluid situation. This is something that's gonna have to be constantly evaluated, whether or not we loosen restrictions or increase restrictions. Whatever the board decides to do tonight is not something that's set in stone for the remainder of the year or even for the first quarter. So, you know, it's important for the public to have an understanding of that as well.
Thank you. And again, we have 5 weeks, we're 5 weeks out, 'cause where we changed the opening of school now to September 9th, so. Deb, do you wanna add anything onto the plan as it's been presented by the superintendent tonight?
No, just my questions, thank you.
Okay. Chris?
Under health management, how much discretion is the board expected to have regarding students who present with symptoms or are tested positive? Is that gonna be handed over to DHHS guidelines? Are they gonna be directly involved with determining lengths of quarantine, who is quarantined, contact tracing within the classrooms?
We will report what we know to DHHS. They will report to us if they have any confirmed cases as well. So it's two-way, we're required to report. They will do contact tracing. They will recommend to us, but the decision to do what we want to do is up to us. If I want to close the district so I can inform everybody and give everybody a day to know what's happening, I can do that. Obviously, I think we would talk as a board and talk with you guys about how you want to handle the possibility of someone having a positive case. If the board wants to call an emergency meeting and close their schools for 2 weeks because they want to, they can do that. The board can close their schools anytime they want.
So I'm
You've
just-
given me authority to close the
Right,
schools
right.
when
So
a
I'm just
situation.
thinking on an individual case-by-case basis, to give the parents what their initial expectations are, when they enter school, when their child does present with a fever, when their child does come in contact, or somebody does come, you know. What? When somebody does, test positive, will they be expected to, a mandatory 14-day quarantine? Will, follow-up tests be expected? Or are you looking for us to give you that guidance?
No. We've got the guidance from the state and DHHS about what we need to do in terms of requiring kids to quarantine, whether it's 10 days or 14 days. We have what we need in terms of what happens with staff. In terms of closing the school, we can have those discussions prior to school opening. I mean, we could have the discussion to say, if we have a positive case in the district, do you want the schools closed until we meet? I'm not suggesting we do that, but I'm saying we could have that conversation. There are some that would say that that's what we should do. We should close the district and have an emergency meeting to decide what's the right thing to do. Now, DHHS will tell you not to do that based on their recommendations. Their recommendations are to mitigate the situation and remain open. But they don't understand the public trust that we have and the fact that we need to publicly disclose everything that goes on regarding this, or we will lose public trust. It'll erode very quickly. So my messaging to parents who have asked is that I will act swiftly and decisively should this come down the pike. And that's how I will act as your superintendent.
And the good thing is also, Chris, is that if you have an incident that happens, as you know, in the elementary school, we can vote as a board to close just the elementary school, but would keep your middle school and high school open, you know, because there's no cases within there. Unless you had a family member that was from the same family or in two schools, that obviously there's different scenarios that we'd end up having to look at.
So are we gonna decide as a board on each individual case as it comes up?
Well, we're probably gonna have to, I would think, right, Dan?
That's kind of.
Totally up to you guys.
That's kind of where I'm getting at. Who's gonna be the
That's up to you
decision
guys to decide how you wanna handle the potential of cases in the district. That's a decision you can make. I know what DHHS has said. I was on a meeting with them today with the epidemiologists and how it would be handled. But remember, they don't run the district. You run the district. So you're authorized to do what you think is the right thing to do, regardless of what the outside agencies are telling you to do. If you think the right thing to do is to close your district down until you get more information or know what the potential issues are, then that's the thing to do. And as your superintendent, I have that right to do as well. I don't wait to talk to you guys and try to get a hold of you to figure out what to do. I'm gonna act. And whatever I do, and then you guys can yell at me later. But I'm gonna act, you know, based on the information I have. And if DHHS is recommending something and I'm not comfortable with it, I don't think it's the right thing to do based on disclosure to our families and disclosure to our staff. I'm gonna act what I think is the right thing to do at that time and then inform the board, look, we need to get together.
So I guess my concern is,
Parental expectations, you know, I know a lot of people are gonna ask, what do I do if my child presents with a fever? It goes away in 2 days, can they come back, do I need a negative test?
And then that's where we follow the DHHS guidance. So we have some guidance that we received today, Chris, that we will be putting out to families.
oh, so information will be going out to families.
Oh my God, absolutely. Well, there'll be information that goes to families that
So I
says
know a lot of people are tuning in tonight.
what their jobs are in terms of screening their students' symptoms, screening their child's temperature, what they have to do in terms of if the child does present with symptoms, in terms of how many days they have to wait to be symptom-free. So that guidance will be going out. The nurses will obviously be sending that out to them.
Okay.
So they'll be, but remember, just because it goes out doesn't necessarily mean that it
Right.
is read or followed.
It just wasn't specified in
No.
this plan, so.
Does that help? Owen?
Yeah, okay.
You have anything else, Chris? No. Thank you, Chris. Cecile?
None.
All right, Cecile is none, okay. Scott Burns, do you have any questions or any concerns or anything you want to know after what the superintendent has presented tonight? You still with us, Scott?
He's got muted.
Yeah, I love everything it's presented and it's what I want. The only other thing, and I might have missed some things, but with masks, it's gotta be face coverings. Cause certain masks, they might be sensitive, like I can't use those masks, cause I get stuffed up very quickly. That's why I have this net data. So that's one thing we need to consider. I don't know, cause some people have allergies, some students may have allergies. So that's my only other thing to add.
Yeah, with asthma and stuff, yep, you're right. You want to address that a little bit, Scott, Dan?
Yeah, when we say the word mask, we mean face coverings. We should be more, you know, we should be less specific.
That's nationwide now, so.
We do mean that. And then we also know that there'll be certain situations with students where that's not, where the ability to wear a face covering or mask may be problematic, and we'll handle those individually, because there'll be individual situations.
And I'm sure Rebecca will have that with it also, Scott, under, you know, those with IEPs and 504s. You know, I can relate to that with my granddaughter, having a sensory issue and documented by a doctor. So I'm sure Rebecca's also gonna be looking at that same thing, that those have sensory issues. If I'm right, Rebecca, am I going down the right path there?
I would say we have a handful of students for which wearing any type of face covering may be challenging, so we will handle those on a case-by-case basis.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Okay, Susan, I'm gonna let you kind of chime in now.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions at this point. It sounds like you guys have really put a lot of thought and energy into this. I did hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the hands-free bathrooms, the cost, Jefferson, was based on the number of bathrooms that we did?
It was based on the number of fixtures that would have to be retrofitted for that, and cost of all the ancillary services like electrical and things of that nature. So that 184 units at $2,500 a pop, you're coming in at just $460,000.
I would also be wondering if the city might be looking at doing the same with all of the public restrooms, City Hall, Crew Center, Rec Center, and if there's any discount if we joined with them.
It's definitely something we can look at. I haven't heard anything through the city. I was speaking with the buildings and grounds director over the weekend, and I haven't heard anything in that sense, but there is a city council meeting tonight, so that might be something that they're discussing.
And before
I'm
we
just
jump,
thinking if there's any way we can cut costs, it's obviously the smart way to go.
Right.
And, you know, any way we can keep everyone safe by having all Franklin's public restrooms is hand-free. Schools free.
so.
Thank you.
Surface transmission is very low.
Right.
And can be mitigated by proper hand washing techniques, and that's free.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that we'll have some, like, you know, hand washing posters, cross-contamination type flyers, you know, things that are hanging that are
I wouldn't recommend.
simplistic for the students to understand, but, I mean, let's be honest, if we taught our kids cross-contamination in elementary school, half of this problem wouldn't be as severe as it is.
Do you wanna, did you wanna say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say, that I would not recommend the hands-free. We brought it to you just so you knew we looked into it, because we knew somebody would bring it up. But I would not recommend it.
And signage is something, Susan, that they are looking at, so I mean, that's a $4,000 cost that we've looked at. But I agree with Chris, I think with proper, hygiene and the proper sanitizing that we are gonna be doing at the schools with some of the stuff that we're already getting into play. I know one of the things that's been discussed among the schools is kind of having, like at the high school, having the students either before they start their class or at the end of their class of wiping down the tables and wiping down their desks. And that way there, when the next students come in, it's already been sanitized. Are you still there, Susan? Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Susan. So there is some plans in place. All right, so that's all the board members.
So we need some
We need some
direction.
guidance and directions on what you wanna do. Whether you wanna go forward with this plan, whether you wanna do something different, whether you wanna start allowing them to order some stuff, but we need to do something tonight. I am.
Alright, I will move forward with the plan as presented by the superintendent, contingent on the fact that, we will be meeting with the teachers union on Thursday, the 6th, to listen to their input, and know that we can revise this plan at any time.
So the motion's been made by Jeff to go with the recommendations as presented by the superintendent this evening, with the understanding that we are meeting with the teachers union on Thursday and that plans can be changed. Is that basic, Jeff?
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cecile. Cecile beat you, Scott. Second by Cecile. Do I have any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, I need a roll call vote on this.
Deb Brown,
No.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes?
Susan Hallett Cook,
Yeah.
Chris Nealand,
No.
Jeff Savory.
Yes.
That is 1, 2, 3, 4 yes, 2 no.
Motion passes as presented by a 5-2 vote.
Yeah, she got Scott.
I got Scott.
Yep, she did.
Scott was a
She got
yes.
Scott. By a 5-2 vote. So this board is going to go into the recommendations and have the superintendent move forward based upon the recommendations of a remote learning hybrid for a hybrid plan that can be changed at any time. I want the public to realize that once we meet with the union or things seem to take a turn, that this, I will call immediately if things seem to take a turn or we see a uptick in cases, that we will call an emergency school board meeting and re-review this again. But for now, we need to move forward with some kind of plan so everybody can start working on how we're going to open the schools up, even on the hybrid plan. So the superintendent will continue to work with his administrative team and continue monitoring and working on this plan. Is there anything else that needs to be brought forward on the reopening school plan? Superintendent, do you have anything further?
Just a letter to families and staff will go out tomorrow morning with the plan, so that everybody has the details that we went over tonight.
Yeah, and we just update us with any changes after the meeting with the teachers union.
Absolutely.
If there are
Oh, absolutely.
changes.
Yeah. The only changes would come back to you, Chris, on the 17th.
Okay.
So it's the board will have the ultimate authority to decide, you know, what's gonna happen after that, so. But we'll start working on the school-based plans that Deb was describing.
All right, this brings us down to agenda item 3, fall athletics. We have our athletics director, Danny Sylvester, is here tonight. You want Danny just to address it, or are you
Well,
gonna go through us with it?
let me brief you a little bit. So,
Yep.
so the NHIAA, which governs our sports in New Hampshire, has been working and meeting, and Danny obviously has been intimately involved in that. They continue to work on ways to see if they can provide athletics to kids throughout the state. So what I had asked Danny to do was to come and update the board on their progress at this point. They have pushed back any beginning of sports until September 8th, so I was thinking that tonight would be more informational for you to think about, and that on the 17th, you would be coming back and having to make some decisions about how we would move forward here in Franklin. So with that, I turn it over to Danny.
Thanks for having me tonight, guys. Obviously a lot going on. Thank you all for the hard work, getting through the academic piece of things first, and I know safety is paramount. So sorry to add a little bit more stress. Will be a lot more stress for some people out there, because athletics is life to a lot of people, and I obviously get that, because it has been a big part of my life for a long time. So I guess just let me get through the general piece of it. I don't have much, because again, we could have a whole separate school board meeting, of which we may, who knows, in the near future, just to talk about athletics or not for the fall. So I do have some general information. There's a whole lot that's still in limbo with the NHIA itself. Yeah, they've changed the date and they've moved it up. That helps, obviously. But just as Dan mentioned with the school piece of it, ultimately it's our decision. The NHIA can change dates, and we have to follow those things, and they do have recommendations for protocols and stuff, but ultimately the decision is ours. It's yours, really, as a school board. So just to start off right now, I do have interest. Kids are still interested. Parents are still signing their kids up. On FamilyID.com, I have 133 total between the two schools, which is the most I've ever had at this particular time. I think people are just chomping at the bit to get active is for the most part what's going on. Probably will end up with about 150 plus range when it's all said and done, because normally once school starts and kids get back from vacations and find out, oh, I can still play, which usually they can, we'll probably end up with about 150 plus total. As Dan mentioned, the NHI did set the fall sports date. They changed it to Tuesday, September 8th. That's 3 weeks later than the original. So that does give us, the main reason was obviously to give schools and school boards time to make decisions on getting kids back to school first, which is the biggest decision to make. Preseason will be roughly 2 weeks, so games will start later. So therefore, there's going to be condensed seasons, which is what we're going to do anyway. As ADs, we're looking to minimize risk without getting into too much detail about the safety piece of everything, because I'm trying to stay general, but we are trying to minimize risk as much as possible. And a way to do that is to play less games. And we're gonna have to do that right off the bat. The NHI is being extremely flexible with it, meaning that they can say you can play as many games as you want. You can play just regionally. You can change your schedule and just play teams that are within 20 to 30 minutes from you. It doesn't matter the division, and it's gonna be an open tournament style. So the NHI is being extremely flexible when it comes to that, for a good reason, because they know, I mean, all schools could do things differently, you know, from one another. We would be in what's called phase 3 of the NHIA protocol and guidelines for COVID-19. So they have a huge document. I sent it to Dan, Tim, and the administrators. So that's available for you guys from Tim if you need it. There's 2 of them, 2 main ones. One from the NHIA with COVID-19 protocols and one from the New Hampshire Athletic Directors Association. So tons of stuff in there. Recommendations, you asked for clarification from Jefferson about, you know, where did you get that information from? So we have a lot of that going on here too. And we're trying to get trying to be as proactive as we can ahead of time without saying, oh, let's just let the school board, you know, and schools decide on everything. I've been emailing admin, students, parents with updates. Some of you here might be parents and get those updates as much as I can when we have date changes. Again, without going into too much detail because we don't know at this point some things. The NHIA Executive Council kind of drives things as far as the NHIA goes, and they're meeting again on Thursday. So again, I'll know more and more as that council meets. Just knowing that they've moved the date up to September 8th was a huge help to all of us. As far as middle school, we're not under the realm of the NHIA, but I think I've mentioned before to everybody, it makes sense that we follow as many of the protocols that the NHIA puts out for our high school student athletes, that we match that to the middle school. Obviously, we do have a little bit of difference in eligibility requirements academically, but other than that, we try to follow as much as we can, and I'll certainly continue to do that with this. I'm not gonna have a different decision made, hopefully, for middle school sports versus high school sports. We should start at the same time and reschedule when we have to, do less games to minimize risk as much as we can. Each individual NHI sports committee, of which I serve on 2, volleyball and football, we're also changing our policies and procedures accordingly. And those P&P manuals, those are like the Bible for the teams and coaches. They have to follow those rules once those are set by the NHIA. Things like disinfecting volleyballs. It's going to be a must that the home school provides 4 game balls, disinfect them constantly. Officials will be wearing masks. Student athletes on the benches will be 6 feet apart, those types of things. So we are looking at serious safety measures. Other than that, I mean, obviously, when do we need to make that decision? As soon as possible, because I do have to do rescheduling based on what we're going to do, if I'm going to do scheduling at all. I know you guys have your next meeting on the 17th. This was obviously a big decision tonight to make, so we've been kind of holding off. Dan and I and Jewel and Jefferson, we've been talking a little bit as we've gone along to try to see where things are at, and I've been keeping everybody up to date, but we're going to need to know as soon as possible, you know, where things are going. It would be nice if we could have a decision made by that meeting you guys have on the 17th. But again, you guys got a lot on your plate, so I certainly understand.
If we would put you, Danny, at the top of the agenda on the 17th, so this, you know, a decision could be made right away. When I received your email with the guidance, it was late this afternoon, so I haven't even had the opportunity to read it yet, on the guidance from the NHIAA, okay? And I want to be able to have the superintendent to send the same information out to the board, okay? So that they can read it. But unfortunately, by the time I got home from work and everything, you know, it was too late for me to really get in to start reading it. But if I put you on the top of the agenda, would we still be in that time frame for you, or?
Sure, that's fine.
Would that be fine?
Yeah.
That'll kind of give you some help on that way. I mean, I just wanted the board to be able to read everything that the NHIA has sent out and everything.
Absolutely. No, and I knew that, because there's a lot, and just like you said, things are gonna change daily or weekly.
Right.
And it's almost like every school is waiting for the other school to make decisions. It's like, well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? There's been very few that have completely said no sports. I believe Interlakes just made that decision, but very few.
College levels have made a few.
Yeah, as far as high schools though, in New Hampshire, it's obviously everybody wants to play. And we get that argument of, you know, if you can't send your kids back to school full time, then how can you play sports? I get it. It's a tougher decision, I think, than the one you just made. So I get it and I understand. So I'll obviously do the best I can getting you guys detailed information as fast as I can. How do you want me to filter that through you and Dan, both?
Filter it through Dan, and then Dan will filter it to the board. That's whatever information you get, then he'll filter it right to the board. Deb, you had a question?
I was just gonna ask to have it all put up into the Google Drive, because that's easier to access those documents.
We can do it both ways, because a lot of times it's easy for me to get it on my email right through the thing, so. We'll just try to do, can you do it through the Google Drive, Dan, and email it?
Yeah, I'll try to do both. It's just easier on my phone to do email, but.
Right. Okay.
They do have the individual sports listed in categories by risk, low, moderate, and high, and obviously football was in the high category. Soccer just got moved to the high category because there was a lot of contact in soccer, so a lot of bumping and grinding going on, especially at the boys level. Cheer, believe it or not, the competition piece of cheer, right, is listed in high risk. Obviously, you're touching, doing stunts, and you know, very, very close quarters when it comes to that. Just the sideline cheer piece of it is obviously in the low risk category. So yeah, there's been a lot of work done. It's just now a matter of, you know, getting you guys that information. I think it would have been very, very tough to have that all at the same time. We've had this decision just to make on school opening itself. So we've kind of been waiting in the wings a little bit to bring some of the stuff on.
Now we got this and the school, what we're gonna do, so now we'll get the information out to the board from the NHIAA, and we'll have a better understanding.
Right. And again, we can do what we want. Some of the options are, we can eliminate the high-risk category sports and play the others. We can do intramural only, meaning the kids just play against themselves, where we certainly control that, how that's going to look. So there is options out there, in other words, to keep the kids active athletically. I don't think people are going to be happy with that option, but it's better than saying no sports at all or no activity. Because you know, we've had a couple other meetings, we talked about how important sports is to people, and it's a tough decision. So, but I'll do whatever I can to at least get you information so you can make a good quality decision. And again, I know either way it's going to be a tough decision. But I get it.
With the a quarter of our student population possibly not coming to school, choosing remote learning, do you feel that we're going to field enough teams to participate at a state level?
Great point, great point. I don't know. It depends on who makes up that 27%. But you're exactly right. If a lot of them are athletes and they're signed up to play, if they're not coming to school at all and they chose remote 100%, they're not playing sports.
Just because a student chooses remote learning doesn't make them ineligible for sports. They can still play sports.
Right.
Correct, but
If we have sports.
But under the same principle, you would assume that.
yeah, if a
But
parent's holding
if
their
it's an outside sport and they're not comfortable coming in the building,
Yeah.
they could make the case that that's what their decision is, so.
yeah.
When do you normally see enrollment start to go up? Would you expect it between now and the 17th? Would they have to start signing up?
It's been wide open now for a couple of months. Will remain wide open probably at least to a couple of weeks into school.
Okay.
Because again, especially at the middle school level, we tend to get a lot of kids signing up.
After they start school?
Yeah. It's a lot of discussions when they're younger with parents. They're on vacation still, and
Okay.
stuff like. But great point. I thought one of you would probably catch
Yeah,
that.
I'll read the NHI guidelines.
Yeah.
Probably have a lot of questions.
Any other questions for Danny? Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, guys.
And those guidelines will be sent out so everybody can read them within the next couple of weeks. The NHIAA is set forth. Alright, we're gonna move on to agenda item 4, which is one-on-one Chromebook plan and insurance. So again, I'll turn this over to Dan.
Yeah, so yes, in front of you, oops, that's the wrong. Where is, there it is, over there. Thank you. So this is the one-on-one Chromebook program that we talked about last year, and we talked about the insurance program. And at that point, we decided it was too late in the year to implement, but we said we would bring it back. Certainly, things have changed dramatically since that conversation. But what we want is the board to just approve that we can send it out. The insurance program is handled through the insurance company, right from the parents to the insurance company. We are not the middle person in that at all. All we do is hand out the flyer, and they choose to take the insurance or not take the insurance. We anticipate having the Chromebooks be picked up by parents before school starts, so that we have the sign-offs that we need, and that the students all have the Chromebooks, whether they're remote or in person, everybody will have them. And we just want to be able to provide the insurance information as well, but didn't want to do that until we had the board's blessing. So I'm here to get your blessing on the insurance program piece of it.
Need a motion?
I need a motion.
I move to accept the Chromebook insurance program as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made to accept the Chromebook insurance as was presented, Chromebook program insurance as presented by the superintendent. That was by Chris, it was seconded by Deb. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Susan Hallett Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealand,
Yes.
Jeff Savory.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
That motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 5, authorization for signature on student activity accounts.
Yes, so I am asking the board to approve Jefferson as a co-signer on the checks for the student activity accounts at the schools.
Okay, so I have a motion on that to accept that recommendation, please.
So moved.
So moved by Chris Nealon to accept the recommendation to have Jefferson on the checking account to sign the checks for the student activity accounts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cecile. Do I have any discussion?
Jefferson, could we just get detailed reports on what's,
What's the activities?
yeah, what the activities are?
Yeah.
For finance.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do actually, because part of our audit process too is to create those reports
Okay.
for the auditor to select items to review.
Deb has a question.
For auditing purposes, because you reconcile the account, can you be as a signer on it? And who are the
I'm
signers?
not actually reconciling the accounts myself.
You reconcile?
I don't.
Who does?
Actually, Colleen, I have her doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who's the second signer in this buildings?
The principals.
Each principal?
Each principal right now is the primary signer on the account. And this is just to have a backup on all the accounts right now.
Is it two
some-
signatures required or one?
No, just one on the checks. It's only on an as-needed basis for me to ever sign a check.
And what's our policy? Does it require two signatures? I believe it does.
On the student activity accounts?
Yeah. If you could check that
Yeah.
for the
Check that,
finance
yeah.
committee.
We'll bring it to finance next week.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I need a roll call vote.
Deb Brown,
Abstention.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Susan Hallett Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealand,
Yes.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
one abstention, 6 yes.
Motion passes, 6 yeses, 1 abstention. We'll move to agenda item 6, an engagement letter from auditor.
So I'm requesting the board allow us to engage the auditor for our fiscal year 20 audit. And I also wanted to mention that we were informed by our auditor that we could lock in for 3 years if we're interested at the current rate. The last time we had discussed this, we had heard that the city was going out to bid and that we wanted to be part of that bid. I have not heard back from the city any information about what they received at this point, but I just wanted to throw that out to you. Certainly something we can follow up on and get back to you on the 17th on, if it's something that you wanna consider.
What are we paying per year?
Now, it's $25,000 and it's been the same for several years now.
So 25,000, they're willing to keep that for the next 3 years?
Yes,
Does that include the grant audit?
yes, everything. Federal submission for the requirements for federal grants that we get too. It's a single audit reporting.
So if we vote on this, say we go with the 3 years, what if, the city comes up with a better deal? Are you gonna wait until you speak to the council, or?
What I would recommend is that you allow us to talk to the city, and we come back on the 17th to tell you what the situation is, and then you can decide.
Okay,
That's what I would do.
okay.
We do need a
But we'd like to
motion,
engage for this year.
But engage for this year.
so we do need a motion to engage with our auditors for this year, so we need a motion on that.
I will make the motion to accept the audit for the 2021 school year.
Second.
So a motion been made to do an engagement letter with the auditors for the 21 or 20? 20 school year.
20, I'm sorry.
20.
So 20 school year, seconded by Chris. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Susan Hallett Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealand,
Yes.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
unanimous.
Alright, so that motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 7 is the MS-26C budget signing.
Can I speak to that? Actually, my,
Yep, Jeff.
postpone that one to the next board meeting. I don't have the form, but it's basically, the Department of Revenue Administration form that informs them of what our proposed budget was, but I also need all the board members, or as many as I can get, to physically sign it, so I will have that for the next board meeting.
So that's gonna be
You have a copy of it?
I do have a
Oh,
copy,
good for you.
if you don't wanna.
Let's see, yeah, so I guess we can do that then.
Alright, we have a copy, and we're not gonna postpone it after all.
Yeah, right.
We got a lot on the
Yeah.
17th, so let's
Dan-
do it
Dan,
now.
send that around.
Let's do it.
This is just something that all the school board members will need to sign. It's just a standard form for a dependent school district. We don't actually post the warrant, the city, because we do it through the city, they do it themselves. But this is obviously the budget that the city put together as part of their
Wanna
budget.
give it to
So-
Jim first?
Oh, we can end up on him.
Yeah, doesn't matter where I sign. Alright, so that's gonna go around for signature, and then we're gonna keep moving on, because there's nothing really for discussion on that, right, Jefferson?
Everybody knows the budget, they've
Yep.
been through it several times.
We all know it's been passed by the city, so. Alright, do we have anything under other, Dan?
The only other I have, I just want to give the board a heads up. We, believe it or not, with this busy summer, we have also completed a new teacher evaluation plan and a new teacher mentoring plan with the help of representatives from the Teachers Association. And I will be sending those plans to you within the next week or so to review for the August 17th meeting.
Am I supposed to print?
We want to be able to have you approve those on the 17th, we hope,
This is
before the start of the school year. But I wanted to thank the teacher reps and the administrators who participated in all that. They're two nice steps forward for us moving forward, so. But just so you had a heads up, it's gonna be coming your way for next meeting. But other than that, there's no other, there is some public participation.
Public participation. We have one still here who would like to participate, so. just wanna come up ahead so they can hear you and.
Yeah, closer to this.
Werner Horn, 137 Winnipesaukee Street, that's Ward 2. A couple of pieces that I kind of heard were missing from the discussion was whether or not in your deliberations you looked into the justification for these measures. Have you gained information from somebody that lets you know that COVID is present in Franklin to the degree that will justify spending $1 million to respond to this? I didn't hear what the staffing solution might have been if we're talking about allowing 12 to 15 kids plus remote learning. Does that mean we're going to hire more staff, or do we expect the staff that we currently have to both be running a classroom 4 days a week, and then also remote learning 5 days a week? So I didn't hear a piece on that either. I would like to know if the conversation has been had that it would be more cost effective to just remote learn everybody rather than having to retrofit schools and spend money on the plastic sheeting and the myriad of other things. And I didn't see where an accounting of all of the money that's being spent was listed in the handout that was given out tonight. Is the public going to have access to what Jefferson presented so that we can give our school board representatives feedback on whether it's a good idea to spend $1 million plus in a school district that, you know, we have to fight with the city just to get $40,000 for a new teacher? So those are some of the questions I have. The first one is particularly keen for me though. Is there a justification for this? Can you show the numbers that COVID-19 is actually present in Franklin to the degree that would require this measurement? And nationwide, this hasn't been affecting kids significantly. There have been outliers for sure, but there are outliers in every disease in our country. We're not taking all of these ridiculous steps for every disease. There was no mask covering, even though we had people who were immunocompromised in our populations prior to the COVID outbreak. I really want these decisions to be based on data. Show me the data, show me that you know the data provided to you that shows Franklin there's a justification for this in our community. I would really appreciate that. Because if there's no justification underpinning this, you're spending $1 million on what somebody else told you might happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public participation? Okay, Superintendent had some?
Yes, I have some. So one that came in is an inquiry about testing staff and students with the rapid response testing before returning to school, whether that would be considered. And then the next one, I won't use names because I haven't cleared this with them. Good evening. I think the current tentative hybrid reopening plan is a good model for the 2021 school year. Will exceptions be made for students in households that have different last names? My daughter has a different last name than her siblings that are in the tentative A to K group, where she would fall into the L to Z group. I'm sure you could see the conflict with separating days in school within the same household. Thank you for the time and all you and the staff have been doing. And I would say yes, we would make accommodations for that, for sure. Although I have 3 children in the Franklin School District, elementary and middle, if children are divided in a hybrid model by last name, is there going to be accommodations for multiple children in one household with different last names? And once again, I would say yes to that. And I watched the school board meeting and have a question for you. In my household, we have 3 children with 2 last names and 1 with the last name. Would an exception be made for them to attend school? I know a few families had the same situation, and I would say yes to you as well. And then I also got some texts. At what point would a student be required to have a COVID test? And then the question came up about busing to sports events, whether or not a parent could drive their athlete to a sporting event instead of taking the bus. looks like that looks like it.
So those questions that were sent to the superintendent, he will address them.
Oh, yeah.
He'll send you an email addressing the answers to those questions, so bear with him. He'll do that tomorrow night probably. We'll give him the night off, he won't have to do it. Okay? All right, so I have no other public participation. I see no further public participation. Wally, you all set?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We do have one quick non-public that we have to go to prior to leaving. Before we do that, any administrative online, do you have any questions for the board tonight pertaining to the agenda that we went through? Okay, I'm seeing head shaking of no. Thank you all very much again for participating. We'll see you in a couple weeks for our regular school board meeting on April 17th. Be safe and enjoy your summer. Thank you.
They're all waving.
They're all waving. All right, so I need a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
So moved by Deb. Do I have a second? Second by Chris. All right, so we have a motion and seconded. I need a roll call vote.
Deb Brown.
Yes.
Scott Burns.
Yes.
Cecile Cormier.
Yes.
Tim Dow.
Yes.
Suzanne Hallett Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Nealand. Jeff Savory.
Yes.